change that? Theo Chikamba reports.
My favourite thing in the whole world.
Classroom teaching is a key part of science teacher Stephanie's day here at the Duston School in Northamptonshire. But it's the pressures that come with the rest of the job which made her consider leaving the profession at her former school.
So which one is the atomic number, Neve? I really enjoyed the day-to-day classroom teaching, but it was the incessant marking that I was doing at the dinner table in the evenings, and it had no discernible impact on the outcomes of the students. Whereas in this school, we have a workplace charter which lists certain things that have a massive impact on the well-being of the staff in this school.
And it's those pressures staff here know too well about, which often go beyond these walls.
I'm remarkably lucky to have a family that understands and a wife and kids that that get it. So yeah, the idea that teaching is 8 till 3 is very much outdated. The amount of paperwork and marking and planning and preparation that goes in, the amount of time that it takes to be able to plan the support that our students need.
It is easier to build strong children than to repair broken adults.
4 years ago, Sam made the decision to quit as a teacher. Now he's going into schools to help staff deal with mental health challenges.
It got so bad that I remember turning away from a class, not to write on the whiteboard, but because I had tears rolling down my face. And I just felt like the education system as a whole, I just didn't feel like I was supported. Eventually I got some help through my own mental health, and I got coaching, and it really was a transformational experience. And when I came back from that experience, I started to see so many students that were also struggling with anxiety and not feeling good enough. But I saw so many of them that were falling through the cracks, so many of them that weren't getting the support they needed.
Aware of the difficulties those in education can come under, management here have implemented measures to ensure they don't reach breaking point.
We've also reinforced what we call a positive impact centre, so our own internalised alternate provision to help our most needy, most challenging pupils that need more of our care and attention. So to give you just 2 examples, we've increased the number of school counsellors that we have on school site, and we have a mental health and wellbeing nurse that works with pupils as well.
Does anybody in the room have any idea what chloroplasts do?
Every day teachers face the battle between doing their best for students and managing their workload. Some find the balance, for others it's proved to be too much. Theo Chikamba, BBC Look East, Northamptonshire.
Well, let's bring in Jeff Barton, who represents school and college leaders. Mr. Barton, we've just heard there stories of teachers crying in the classroom, having just, 5 hours sleep because of marking and lesson planning way into the night. How common is this from your perspective?
Well, Janine, we know that despite some of the stereotypes of teachers getting long holidays and so on, they do, it's a stressful job. Even in normal times, you being there responsible for 30 young people, maybe 5 lessons or 6 lessons a day, that's emotionally very draining, and then there's the workload on top of it. But what we're hearing in that report is the way that's been exacerbated. And we know from the most recent survey of teacher wellbeing that 72% of teachers say that they feel their mental health is being undermined by the amount of work they're having to do and the stress. And we recognise everyone is living in an age of anxiety, but I think it's helpful that we've illuminated through this report and a leadership team saying we're going to do something about it, the scale of the issue.
According to government figures, we do actually have more teaching staff than we had a couple of years ago, and overall class sizes are slightly smaller. Now, it feels like that should be helping. Why isn't it?
Well, I think part of the reason it isn't is that we are seeing more students now coming through the system, and we're seeing more teachers leaving the system, whatever the government might say. We lose about 30% of our teachers after the first 5 years. We lose about 50% of teachers after 10 years. Those experienced teachers you would want teaching your children are finding it easier to be able to say, I'm not going to do this, I'm going to go and do something else there. So you've got a huge recruitment issue, but also a huge retention issue at the moment. And what that does is increase the pressure on those people who are in the classroom, because at the moment, particularly after COVID, it's not just like dealing with youngsters in normal times. You've got youngsters who might have missed out on a lot, who might not have lived in a house with books like this and haven't kept their reading going. So you're having to really diversify the way in which you're teaching and plan in a different way from previous times. So we're definitely seeing stress levels for teachers and teaching assistants increase significantly.
You mentioned there the pandemic, but actually levels of stress and those considering leaving, when you look at the studies, are broadly similar to what they were 5 years ago. It's not a new problem, this. It wasn't caused by the pandemic. Why do you think we haven't got on top of this before now?
Well, the government has, over the years, done all kinds of workload summits. I've been part of them, when they say, well, let's reduce the workload on teachers, and they come up with a kind of protocol around doing that. And it's full of good intentions. I'm not denigrating that. But even this weekend, on a Saturday morning, they sent an email to all school leaders, the Department for Education, about music education. Just like the last bank holiday, they sent something to all school leaders about tutoring. It seems to me it's easy to sit in Westminster in the bunker there and to talk about well-being. We really need to take it more seriously. And one of the things I would suggest, just like technology has improved our lives in retail and improved our lives in healthcare and so on, hasn't done a lot in education yet. There hasn't been a serious investment of how could we get some of the heavy lifting of the boring stuff, some of the marking and assessment, to be done by the computers, leaving the human beings, the teachers, to focus on what we do best, the humane, creative, empathetic work in helping children to learn. That would be reinventing the teaching profession for the 21st century. And here I am, a trade union leader, with more ambition for the profession and young people than the government seems to have.
Jeff Barton, thank you very much indeed for your time on Look East this evening. Thank you. Of course,